Ready for the next section with Joseph de Veaugh-Geiss, who's going to have a very interesting approach to sustainability and a mix between hardware and software. Please, Joseph.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So yeah, my talk today is more about the intersection of software and hardware in terms of hardware. Hello? Okay. So if you would like to download the slides, they're available online. There's a lot of resources in there you might be interested in looking at afterwards. And I also want to announce that later today at 2:40, we will have a BOF to coordinate a campaign related to the end of life of Windows 10. And I hope by the end of this talk, you'll be motivated to come and get involved. So I'm going to talk about the intersection of software and hardware in terms of sustainability. And we'll do this in 4 parts. I'm going to start with this is not fine. Part 2, critical role of software. Part 3 is this new KDE Eco project, Opt Green, sustainable software for sustainable hardware. And then part 4, if we have time, how to contribute. So this is not fine. So many of you may know this comic of a dog sitting in a burning room, and the dog says, this is fine. And if you play that out over time, you will probably end up in a situation like this. This is not fine. Oh my God, everything's on fire. What the hell is my problem, right? This is where we are at right now. We are in a climate crisis. These are some headlines from articles from this year. In April, the Antarctic jumped to almost 40 degrees Celsius. This is the coldest place on Earth. Ocean temperatures are at their highest level ever, and much higher than previous years. Last summer was the hottest summer on record. It will be the coolest summer for people who are born today, right? That's crazy. And it's our fault. We're doing this. We're pumping CO2 into the atmosphere and other greenhouse gases. We've known about this for a long time. The first studies done on the effect of greenhouse gases on temperature were done in the 1850s. In 1912, this is an article from a magazine called Popular Mechanics, in which they state adding CO2 tends to make the air a more effective blanket for the Earth and to raise its temperature. This effect may be considerable in a few centuries. We're now over 1 century later, and it is considerable. What does this have to do with technology, ICT sector, software? So the ICT sector today is estimated to contribute the equivalent of CO2 as the aviation industry. Many people don't know this, but it's between 2 and 3%. And this is from a meta study, Freitag et al. From 2021. And projecting up forward, all projections go up, so we're not reducing our carbon footprint. In the worst case scenario, the estimates are that the ICT sector will be contributing up to 30% of the CO2 emissions. By 2050. Even the best case scenarios, it's going up. What does that look like when you start to look at the different areas in ICT? What you see in every study you look at and every estimate that you look at is that manufacturing and production has the highest impact. This is in terms of energy consumption, which correlates in many cases to CO2 emissions. This is from the International Energy Agency, and they estimate that manufacturing alone contributes half of the energy consumption driven by the ICT sector. If we look at this in terms of devices, this is from a study from the University of Zurich, in which you look at different devices in terms of their production in the orange, and the use in blue in terms of the CO2 equivalents per year. And you can see across all devices here, production has the highest impact. It's disproportionate to the use in terms of its contributions to CO2. A German Environment Agency study tried to estimate when would be that sweet spot where efficiency gains in new devices make it worth replacing old ones. And they estimate, assuming 10% increase in efficiency per year, that you would need to use a device for at least 30 years before it makes sense and is justifiable to then buy a new device. We're very far from that today. It's not just the production that has an environmental impact, though. E-waste is a huge problem. It's the fastest growing waste stream in the world. In 2015, the director of the United Nations Environmental Program, Achim Steiner, referred to a tsunami of e-waste rolling out over the world. In 2016, we produced annually 45 million metric tons of e-waste. To get an idea of what that means in terms of material, if you were to build Eiffel Towers out of that material, you could build 4,500 Eiffel Towers out of it. And it's only increasing. In 2022, it's a 30% increase from 2016 at 60 million metric tons. In many cases, our devices end up in drawers somewhere. If they're not in a drawer, they might end up in a landfill. In landfills, it's only 2% of the waste, but it contributes 70% of the toxic waste. If it does end up at an end-of-life treatment center, in the best case scenario, it's potentially toxic to the workers. And the worst case scenario, it's also polluting the air, the soil, the waters, and the people living nearby. This is a picture from Ghana where these are called burners, where you burn cables to get the metals out from inside. There are studies that have correlated this to higher cancer rates in populations nearby. And if you think about those production costs and the embodied carbon in a device, getting rid of a device when it's still functional is wasted CO2 that's embodied in that device itself from the production, and it's contributing more environmental harm when it's being treated. Okay, so what is the role of software here? So software drives the energy demand of your devices, and it determines what the resources are that device has to provide in order to run that software. This is another study from the German Environment Agency in which they compared different software products doing the exact same thing. This is 2 word processors, only identified as open source and proprietary. You can probably guess which they are. And you can see from this, to do the exact same tasks, the proprietary one consumes 4 times the energy. Okay? For a single user, this may not be very significant, but if you multiply that out, scale it up to billions of users, you're talking about huge increase in energy consumption. Those demands are often for things we don't even want, right? In the update to Windows 11, there are now going to be ads presented in your start menu that you can't remove. That is going to increase the energy profile of that software. There was a study done for the European Union looking at the energy consumption driven by unwanted data use for ads and tracking. This is for European citizens. 60% responded that they would opt out of ads and tracking if they could, but they can't. And analysis of how much energy that consumes in a year puts it at around the energy consumption of a city like Lisbon or Turin in 1 year for something people don't want. And software support is another major factor in how long a device can be used. So that was related to energy consumption, resource demands on devices. Security support is a major factor in driving e-waste. In October 14th, 2025, in about 1 year, Windows 10 end of support means that about 240 million devices are going to become e-waste because they can't upgrade to Windows 11. It's not just Microsoft. Mac is slowly phasing out their Intel-based chips. These are devices that are relatively new. We're talking about 2019, 2020. In the current, from what I understand, about another 2 years of support for many of these devices, and then they become e-waste, although they are still functioning devices. And this is e-waste because of software. It's not because of any problem with the hardware, it's because of the software. Consumers appear to be aware of this problem. This is from a Eurobarometer poll looking at consumer behavior with respect to device longevity. A majority would like to use devices for longer than 5 years. And 30%, the reason they get a new device is because performance has deteriorated. That can be related to software bloat. It can be related also to software obsolescence. 90% say that the software has stopped working. And I know many people who do this, they continue using software, although support has ended, and then slowly they can't update their programs, and they can't then use the software they were using before. That may be one of the causes of that. These are software issues in many cases. Consumer interest in sustainability is growing. This is sort of the motivation behind the project that we're in right now, which I'm going to present in just one second. And it's largely being driven, this is just some examples from a study about consumer behavior, being driven by environmental concerns. And if you've seen me talk before, you've probably seen me talk about the Blue Angel. The Blue Angel is an eco label from the German government. It's the oldest eco label in the world. They now certify software as of 2020. KDE is proud that we certified our PDF reader. There are three categories of criteria that have to be fulfilled. That includes resource and energy efficiency, so transparency in the energy consumption. Hardware operating life, they have a 5-year limit. I find that too low, personally. And user autonomy. And these criteria, although you don't have to be free and open source software to get the eco label, if you are developing free and open source software, you are already meeting almost all of them. And the criteria under user autonomy include things like freedom from ads, right? We saw that ads consume energy. This has a sustainability impact. Uninstallability. This is obvious to anyone who uses free software that you can uninstall something. For many users, that's not the case. You get pre-packaged software that you can't uninstall, which consumes energy in the background. Support for open formats, open document formats. So if you're stuck in a program, a proprietary program that's consuming more energy and it has a proprietary data format, you can't switch to a more energy efficient one. So they're really looking at this from a holistic perspective. I'm wondering how many people actually know about this, how many users understand what this means for sustainability. So that's what this project is about. So this is the Opt Green project. It's a new project funded by the German Environment Agency under the KDE Eco umbrella. It's a KDE supported project, but it's related to free software in general. And I just want to go over some of the things that we want to do and maybe motivate you to get involved. So it's a focus on eco-consumers. It's people who already are choosing to consume in a way that's in line with their values in terms of the environment. And what we are trying to do is align people who may be buying organic products, fair trade products, other types of sustainable-oriented products, align those values they have in those areas with their digital lives. So presenting that these topics are the same. It's a design-driven project. We really want to make it visually something that's appealing to a wide audience, in particular as eco-consumer. We have campaign materials that we're developing. This is from a pamphlet. I have some here. If you want to get one, just talk to me afterwards about the role that software plays in hardware longevity, summing up many of the things that we're talking about here. We're going to eco-festivals, open-air markets, demoing devices, providing information. This is from the Environmental Festival in Berlin in April, together with the Bits and Bäume project and the FSFE, where we have devices on display. This is from the Long Night of the Sciences, Lange Nacht der Wissenschaften, where we have various devices. All of them are e-waste. All of them are running up-to-date software. The oldest one is this one in the middle from 2003. It was updated the day before this event. It works actually surprisingly well. It's not Linux. I have Haiku on it. Haiku supports a lot of KDE software, so it's a nice way to show KDE software on a very old device. But it's incredible how well it works, and it demonstrates how software is the reason this would be e-waste. This is still a functioning device. You can still use it. You can watch movies on it. You can watch YouTube videos on it. You can write documents on it. So demoing unsupported hardware is part of it, and one thing that I'm recognizing more and more is how FOSS is already doing this. This isn't a hypothetical solution to the problem of software-driven e-waste. Free and open source software has already been doing this for decades, and it's a blue ocean. There's no one else there doing this, and we are the ones doing it. We're supporting devices like this MacBook from 2009 that's still in use today. And I'll maybe sum up here that one of the things I try to drive home is that with free and open source software and with the freedoms guaranteed buy the free software license to use, share, modify, improve, allow users to have the software work on the devices they own, not like proprietary software, which forces users to buy new devices to support the software that's being forced upon them, right? This is a fundamental difference between free and open source software and proprietary software, given the licensing that we have. If you want to get involved, there's many ways to do so. But first of all, come to the BOF today at 2:40 and get involved with this campaign.